Hi ma'am, hi friends. I'm going to be talking to you about the aesthetic movement called Pictorialism. Pictorialism is an international movement that came into vogue in the late 19th century and stayed until early 20th century. It's a process in which the photographer, after clicking a picture, tries to manipulate it in order to personalize it. This was done to record an image and not just a photo. This concept was a reaction to debates about photography being an art or otherwise. Many scholars around the world denied photography the status of art. Anybody could take a photo, and with a camera in hand and some practice, it's nothing unique to boast of. These debates were circulating until photographs began to be allowed in museums during the same time. When the debate was taking a low turn for photography, various photographers and modern art proponents like Alfred Stieglitz, Paul L. Anderson, Alfred Lichtenberg, and the others encouraged pictorialism that used various elements outside of paper and film to make the photo more expressive of moods and emotions, thus giving photographs the demanded artistic touch. In the late 1940s, that is just after World War II, pictorialism started to give way to modernist photography when the public started to prefer sharply focused images instead of the blurry, painting-like photos of the pictorialists. The evolution is very interesting to follow. As mentioned before, as soon as photography was invented, there started to be debates among intellectuals about the artsiness of photography and its status as a document of events, if it was one or both of these. In 1853, English painter William John Newton suggested that photography can be made more personalized by making them hazy and blurry, in other words, slightly out of focus. Many others, though, stuck to their rejection of the medium. In course of time, traditional painters themselves began to prefer photography and its accuracy to take inspiration from. Instead of making people pose, they would take a picture and then paint the image in the picture. In fact, many of these painters started to own a camera themselves and made picture taking a hobby. Some of them were Delacroix, Courbet, Manet, Degas, Cézanne, and Gauguin. As these developments happened, it became increasingly difficult to demarcate painting and photography. In the beginning, cameras were the privilege of a few good at the technique and skill. Later, when Kodak was introduced in 1888 by George Eastman with the slogan, "You press the button, we do the rest," every artist began to own a camera and use it for various purposes, and out of this came the idea of pictorialism. So how did pictorialism happen? Well, they began to use various tools to manipulate the negatives in the film, such as texture screens, ink, carbon, lamp black, oil paint, watercolor, bleach, sepia, etc. To get into the technicalities though of the process is beyond the scope of this video. Fiber-based paper is preferred over resin-coated paper for its rough base. Then texture and tonality are addressed to give the touch of realism. What you see on the left side is resin-coated paper and the right side is fiber-coated, and only the latter can give you a dazed image. One of the most successful pioneers of pictorialism was the English photographer Henry Peach Robinson. His use of chiaroscuro was exceptional. Chiaroscuro is a technique of using heavy contrasts, lighting and shading to intensify a mood. His most important picture, Fading Away, was created with nothing less than 5 negatives and changes being made to them to make the ambience in the picture suit the mood of the characters in it. The picture is of a sick girl dying of consumption while her mother and sister are around her, and an unknown man is near the window, apparently moved with grief. When one sees the picture, it's quite clear that even the expression on their faces seem more intense due to the sepia tone given to the photo. It is almost a perfect piece of painting art. He has used a technique called combination printing, which is using different elements from different pictures and bringing them together after making some manual changes in the negative. Though Robinson wanted to prove that depth and a sense of realism is obtainable through the photos, he got mixed reviews for this one in particular. Some were blown away by the effect the picture provoked, but the others could still see through the fact that Robinson had not shot reality but had people to pose for him. This furthered discussion about if pictorialism could ever be art. Despite failure, the great artist photographer managed to garner mass attention towards his ambition of hybridizing fact and art. This picture is a very famous one by Stieglitz, taken just after the Philippines insurrection in 1902. In this one picture itself, he has depicted what America stood for in the time. After successfully stubbing the Filipinos, the American soldiers successfully established many commercial and mass facilities in the comparatively poor Filipino and also set telegraph posts, hospices, schools and railroads. In this picture, Stieglitz has clearly depicted the hand of man by intensifying the smoke emanating from the engine, thus showing a dual purpose of development and pollution. The train can be seen as coming away from the pastoral fog behind, guessed by many as standing for South America and the secessionists and its backwardness when compared to the North, thus giving a message that whoever was under North America was going towards progress. The picture clearly shows the incoming of the industrial age, depicted by the engine coming towards the viewer, and the sense of depth created between the engine and the background is what makes the photo artistic and expressive of a nostalgic mood. Stieglitz reached his peak with the steerage, a picture in which different spatial layers have been used, and according to the photographer himself, this was a treatise on mathematical lines, balance, pattern of light and shade. 5 different spatial layers have been put together in this photograph, so we can fathom how much different this picture could be from the original to create the feel of a document abounding in cubist formulations. Though Stieglitz moved away from pictorialism towards modern photography, featured by clarity and sharp focus, his pictorialist work still remains foremost in preference in museums. He wrote, "It is high time that the stupidity and sham in pictorial photography be struck a solar plexus blow. Claims of art won't do. Let the photographer make a perfect photograph now. And if he happens to be a lover of perfection and a seer, the resulting photograph will be straight and beautiful, a true photograph." This sentence of his also marked the beginning of the end of pictorialism towards modernism. Pictorialism mainly grew in the European countries like Britain, Germany, France, etc., and then spread to America and became central there for a while through Stieglitz's work. After World War II, people began to prefer exact documents of events to artistic pictures, and therefore photographers, instead of manipulating their photos, shifted their attention to taking accurate pictures of the events of the war and so on. As Adolf Fassbender, a 20th century photographer, puts it, "There is no solution in trying to eradicate pictorialism, for one would then have to destroy idealism, sentiment, and all sense of art and beauty. There will always be pictorialism." Though only 2 artists have been studied here, many more of their works and works of other pictorialists show that the movement, though short-lived, enjoyed a good public reception, and popular works of this type still enjoy the same today. This aesthetic movement makes us want to regard both art and photography equally and see the latter as one of the many mediums of the former. Thank you.